Sawadee Krap and welcome to another episode here for the Funk Report Mindful Media and Communication. And today we'll talk a little bit about a topic that is close to my heart once again. As you might know, if you follow the podcast or me or something, you know that I'm in education. And so while I'm in higher education, of course, I also care about all the other forms of education. And so today I want to talk a little bit about the influence of media on children and teenagers. And so I hope you again join me on this quick 10 to 15 minute journey here, where we just talk a little bit about the media, how it can influence children slash teenagers, and then towards the end also what we can do to steer that into the right direction, so to speak. Let's see. So in order to understand the influence, we look again, as always, at a few key theories here that we are also already familiar with. If we listen to previous podcast episodes here, and then hopefully also can shed a light on the effects of media exposure. Yeah, talking about the theories, right? So in previous episodes, we talked about the cultivation theory already. This theory, if you remember, posits that prolonged exposure to media, to media content, can shape individuals' beliefs and perceptions about the world, right? That's what we talked about before. So for children and teenagers, this theory suggests that consistent exposure to certain media portrayals, such as gender roles, stereotypes, and so on, can influence their understanding of social norms and behaviors. A prime example right now might be, great example. Andrew Tate, top G. Andrew Tate has been like in the news, medias, and so on for like a year or so now, right? And so I'm not going to make this podcast about Andrew Tate, but just as an example, like a controversial figure that draws lots of attention from men and also teenage men, right? Teenagers. So then I try to phrase it like without adding any bias. So then being exposed to Andrew Tate's, for example, viewpoints over an extended period of time could influence the way children, but in this case, probably more teenagers, think. Okay. That's just one example. It could be any influencer. It could also be the Kardashians if you want to, of course. So it could be any influencer that, or anyone that creates certain kind of content that teenagers consume. And of course, teenagers and children are very often a little more, I don't know, a little bit easier influenced when it comes to certain topics because they just lack the experience, obviously. Other topics, then again, could influence maybe an older generation easier because they don't know better. For example, tech stuff, right? But in this episode, we talk about more about the kids and the teenagers, of course. So that's the cultivation theory. We could also talk about the agenda setting theory that we talked about before already, because this theory suggests that media has the power to influence what people think about by, if you remember, selectively presenting certain issues and topics as more important than others. So, meaning the media could say, hey, this one topic is very important right now. That's why we talk about it all the time. Other topics are not. That's why we don't talk about those topics, for example. And then children slash teens might say, hey, I never see anything about topic A on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, wherever they are, but I see a lot about this other topic, so therefore that must be more important. So if we understand those theories, we can gain a bit of a deeper understanding of how media impacts thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors, and in this case, of course, of younger individuals. And because there's just so much potential of influencing young minds in the media. So I think that's why mindful media consumption just needs promotion. That's why I call this podcast Mindful Media and Communication, because I just think it's that important. Because media, A, will always be there, but B, it's important and it's great to have, right? But it needs to be mindfully consumed. So the question is, of course, so what are the strategies for promoting mindful media consumption, right? Do you just tell the teens, the kids, like, hey, you cannot use this and that? Will it work? Probably not, right? And there's an abundance of media options available, of course. So I think it's quite essential to guide children and teens in making informed choices and developing those critical thinking skills that we talked about in previous episodes. They don't just ban things for them and say you're not allowed to do this. No, I think making sure that they make informed choices by themselves and that they have critical thinking skills is way more important. And to support these efforts, right, I think we have to look a little bit more into like media literacy education and the role of media literacy education in actually empowering young individuals. Because if they are good at that, then they will be able to analyze, evaluate, interpret media messages way better. Okay, so if media literacy is there, if they are educated in it, then they will be able to utilize it. Now, the question is, of course, how do you educate? Do you just have a class on media literacy in school, which could be boring, just an extra homework, I don't want to do it? Or do you use like different tips and tricks in order to maybe implement media literacy into other classes, for example? So within this realm of media literacy, right, gotta explore concepts such as media decoding and encoding, for example, right? Media decoding, as you probably know, refers to the ability to critically analyze and interpret media messages, right? Like, so you understand the intended meanings and potential effects. On the other hand, then, media encoding refers to the production and creation of media content. So in this case, it would enable these young individuals to become active contributors and creators rather than passive consumers. So knowing how to decode and encode is quite important when it comes to media literacy, because if you can do that, then you can become an active contributor slash creator slash even an active consumer instead of just being a passive consumer, just believing in what you're hearing. Okay, so media literacy, in the realm of media literacy, I think it's important to understand how to decode and encode, how decoding and encoding works. Because if we understand that, if the younger generation understand that, then they will be able to be more active in the way they consume the media rather than just passively letting it all hit them, so to speak. Okay. So if they develop those skills, children, teenagers, and so on can become more discerning in their media consumption and hence will be capable of recognizing and evaluating persuasive techniques, biases, hidden agendas, all the things we talked about in the intro. And moreover, I also think we got to discuss the significance of media balance, and that's a difficult topic, but setting appropriate limits. Yeah, there needs to be a healthy balance between screen time and other activities encouraged, outdoor play, reading, social interactions, and so on. I think that's vital for the overall well-being of kids and teenagers. Now, this might sound like your teacher talk and so on, and I agree. So I wouldn't necessarily say, and who am I to tell parents, right? But I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, you can only use your iPad for 2 hours a day or something like this. But you gotta encourage them doing other things as well. Like if they're into sports, encourage sports, right? And while they're doing sports, they're not gonna be on their iPads, they're not gonna be online, they're gonna do sports. If they're into any other hobbies, music and whatever it might be, great. Encourage their hobbies, right? Don't force the hobbies on them, because if you say, hey, you have to do this and this and this and that, and then they're just gonna sit in the corner and just be on their phones anyways, right? So don't force them into anything, of course, but encourage. So finding hobbies, finding some way where they might want to socialize is great. And if that's via games, for example, don't be mad. That's a first step. That's also okay, right? But still, there might be when possibilities. For example, if they're into all things online gaming and so on, then take them to game events, for example. Then at least they get out and they also socialize to some extent, at least. Okay, so there is always an option there, I think. So I don't think you should be saying you can only use it for 2 hours and so on. And if you're not having good grades, then you can't use it at all. I think that doesn't make sense. That's like this hardcore old school punishment. But maybe encouraging other interactions, social interactions, can be a good idea. And I think with all those things that we just mentioned, right, then we can also talk about the concept of media mindfulness, because that involves being present and intentional in media consumption, right? It means avoid mindless scrolling or excessive exposure to I want to say harmful content, right? So this mindful consumption means, yeah, I know I'm consuming entertainment right now, but I'm not just mindlessly scrolling. I'm gonna want to be entertained now for 20 minutes, great, but then I'm gonna focus on something else again. So if we foster those practices, we empower the young audience to develop a more positive relationship with the media and make conscious choices, harness the potential of media for education. It's clearly there, for creativity, for entertainment, all those things. Okay, so I think that's very important. That's a big, big powerful aspect of the whole realm of media. And media has so much power. We just have to utilize it. And lastly, I think we have to talk about the role of parents and educators. So I'm not excluding myself here as well, right? Because I think, of course, parents and educators are like having crucial roles there when it comes to guiding media choices for children and teenagers. And there needs to be, I think, an open communication and a very active engagement with young individuals about their media consumption. So not just what I said earlier, not just banning things. And you gotta have meaningful conversations about media content. You have to discuss the impact, gotta address any concerns, any questions. And again, what I said earlier, parents and educators alike, they can and they should foster critical thinking skills, because this will help children to navigate those potential pitfalls. So don't just say you can't use TikTok. If they are aware of what can happen on TikTok, then they can use it mindfully. If you just say you can't use it, they will eventually find a way to use it. Yeah, moreover, you can also explore the significance of media co-viewing or co-engagement, for example. If you share media experiences with children, with teenagers, parents as well as educators can provide guidance, can offer insights, promote discussions around values like such as ethics, for example, or again about responsible media consumption, right? So if you consume media all the time, mindless media, and it's running on the TV all the time, then why would your child do something differently? So you could think about like the concept of media monitoring, for example. Also, of course, yeah, that starts with, and I'm sorry, but being a positive role model when it comes to media use, and yeah, that showcases responsible media behavior. So if you as a parent or as an educator use media in a responsible way, so will the students/children, and they will follow you. So if you model healthy media habits, if you're being mindful about your own media consumption and engage in open dialogues about media choices, the children will follow. So if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. I did not plan on using Michael Jackson here, but it fits, right? So it all starts with us. That's just the case. Yeah, lastly, before I wrap things up again, I also one more time want to just emphasize on the need for media literacy education in schools. Like what I said earlier, educators should incorporate media literacy into the curriculum, I think, in order to empower students with all those necessary skills in order to navigate this crazy, confusing media landscape effectively, right? Because if you integrate media literacy into the educational system, you equip those young individuals, kids, teenagers, with the tools to critically analyze media messages, distinguish between reliable and unreliable sources, and engage with media in a responsible and informed manner. And I think, yeah, we do this like in university, right? But I think it's way too late. It needs to be done way sooner, and we do this right now with students who study media. They should be done way sooner. It should be done, I don't know, early high school by the latest, maybe even sooner, right? So this needs to be integrated in curriculums, I think. All right, but we're not going to make this a curriculum discussion now. So let's conclude this quick, somewhat thought-provoking maybe episode on mindful media consumption for kids and teens. I want to invite parents, educators, and maybe even actually society at large to recognize the profound influence that media holds over young minds. Yeah, it's really, really, really powerful. And by understanding the theories we just mentioned, yeah, those behind media effects like promoting media literacy, education, fostering critical thinking, the guiding media choices, we can empower children and teens, of course, to become, that's what I always say at the end of this podcast, right? Discerning media consumers. So also what I say all the time, remember, a mindful approach to media consumption not only helps protect young individuals from potential harms, but also enables them to harness the power of media for their personal growth, education, well-being. And that's what we want. So it's not just hide from the negatives, but use the positives that the media brings with it, right? And there's so much positive potential with the media. You just need to use it in a mindful way, and we need to make sure that the next generation is using it in a mindful, responsible way. All right, that's it again from me for today. Thanks for being with me again. Again, this topic close to my heart. So let me know what you think about mindful media consumption amongst children/teenagers. How could it be promoted? What's a good way to, I don't know, start with media literacy in school, or how would you handle that? Shout out, it's at funkitpod on social media, funkitpod@gmail.com, or just leave a review, that would be fantastic, or answer the poll question on Spotify. As always, if you like this, share it, like it, leave a review. That always helps, and we can hopefully grow our audience. We will talk soon. Until then, stay safe, take care. Sawadee Cup.